Hello, listeners. If you've enjoyed these narrations, please click on that like and subscribe button. I don't know if anyone else in the country has seen something like it, but the area that I live in has a bunch of not deer. It's not something anyone around here talks about a lot, but when someone calls you in the middle of the night in hysteric or shows up in your doorstep with a wild look in their eye, you know what they've seen. And they never quite the same after what they've seen. It's hard to explain what exactly the not deer is. The name isn't very good at telling you much. You just know it when you see it. It will look like a deer, but only if you're not looking closer. If you give it more than just a curious glance, then you'll start to see how it's not a deer at all. I've collected a few accounts my friends have had about this thing. One of my drinking buddies, who we'll call Tyler, spilled his story over some beers at our favorite little dive. Me and him were sitting with a couple of our other friends in the bar. We were all about a bunch of 40-something guys who had grown up in the rural Apaches. Tyler looked around the bar to see if anyone close to us was going to hear what he had to say next. What he told me was that he saw it when he was younger, in about his early 20s. Now, Tyler was smart and had gotten into the university in a big city. He was driving back to his hometown out in the country for a winter break so he could spend Christmas with his folks. He was driving a little slow down a 2-lane country road on account of the ice and snow that the area had been getting. He was keeping an eye out for animals since he had been driving through the middle of the woods, so he was well prepared for if something like a deer had leaped out of the woods in the way of his car. What not enough people understand is that hitting a deer out in the middle of nowhere can be a death sentence that will wreck your car, and if it's a buck, then you have an extra danger of antlers going through the windshield and into places that they're not supposed to be. So it's understandable that Tyler slammed his brakes when he saw the deer. It came to a stop about 20 feet in front of it. Now Tyler just sat there waiting for the deer to move out of the way. He told me that at first it looked like any other normal deer, but he slowly started to realize that something was off about it. Tyler told me that the deer didn't get out of the way immediately. He said that it was wobbling on its legs like a newborn. It took a shaky step forward, and then another, and then it began to walk more confidently until it was out of the way of the truck. As the deer was walking, Tyler realized that what was off about the deer was its legs. I asked him what was it about them that was off, but he just shook his head. "I don't know, man," he said. "There were either too many bends in there or not enough. It was just wrong. It wasn't made right." Tyler said that as soon as he noticed this, he got more afraid. He said it felt like his heart had sunken into his stomach. After the deer had gotten out of the way of the car, it stopped in its tracks. Then its head turned around to face Tyler. "It looked too smart," Tyler said. "It wasn't looking at me. It was looking into me." Tyler put the pedal to the metal, not caring about the ice and the snow on the road. He said he kept up that speed for 5 minutes. His heart was about to beat out of his chest, and he said he had to take a deep breath to get himself to calm down. After Tyler finished his story, we were all silent, and that's when another one of my friends, who we'll call Jamie, spoke up. "I've never seen it," Jamie said in a voice that made me think he was lying. "But my dad has." Jamie said that it happened when he was about a teen. His dad was going out into the outhouse in the middle of the night. Jamie's dad always brought a flashlight with him so that he could see where he was going, and when he got from the house to the outhouse just fine. But when he was walking from the outhouse back was when he shined the flashlight into the nearby tree line, and standing just at the edge of the tree line was the deer. The deer's eyes reflected the light of the flashlight back at Jamie's dad, making it appear as though the deer's eyes were glowing. It's something that happens with all deers and all lights, but it can still be unnerving. The deer ran off after a few seconds, and Jamie's dad started walking back towards the house when he heard a rustling in the trees. He shone the flashlight at the tree line yet again. According to Jamie's dad, there was a deer standing about 5 feet apart from each other and down the tree line. They were just standing, just looking at him. and Jamie's dad got spooked and booked it back to the house. The next morning, Jamie and his dad had a drive into town for supplies. His dad told Jamie all about what happened during the drive, but Jamie said that as he told the story, his dad seemed to get more unnerved, more scared. When he got to the part with all the deer standing in line, he paused. "You know, something about those deer wasn't right, besides the obvious." Jamie's dad was silent for a bit before he said, It was the eyes, son. They didn't glow. And their faces, they were wrong. Didn't look like a deer's face at all." "What do you mean, Dad?" Jamie had to ask his father. "It was like something had made a deer's face from memory, and then just stuck it onto an actual deer's body." Jamie's dad was silent for a while after that. It was only when they pulled into the store in town that Jamie's dad spoke up again. "You know, Jamie, I'm starting to think that what I saw wasn't a deer at all." Once again, our group of friends was silent as we drank our beers for a while. And that's when Kyle spoke up. "I have a story too." Kyle was a laid-back guy, never really partied, never complained about his job, and was never really one to strike up the conversation. He was usually the proverbial third wheel in a group. Kyle said this happened maybe 3 years ago. He ran a hardware store in town that had fallen on rough times. He decided to travel into city to go into business seminars being given by one of those they called a guru, to try and get his store out of the red. He was driving on a country road towards the city when the deer ran out of the woods and hit front of his car. Kyle slammed the brakes and was able to stop before he actually hit it. The deer swiveled his head around to face Kyle, and Kyle said, "It was just like Tyler said. It wasn't looking at me, it was looking into me." Kyle just sat there looking at the thing, waiting for it to get a whiff of the smell of the truck or him and run off. But instead it walked up to the car. It raised its front legs and planted its hooves on the hood of Kyle's truck. The deer just stayed there, towering over Kyle. It looked down at him, staring at him straight into his eyes. "Its breathing was real heavy and raspy," Kyle said. "Sounded phlegmy too, like it was trying to cough something up. It was terrible. My heart went into my throat. I just felt like something was gonna happen if I stayed there any longer, so I did what I had to do." Kyle said he pressed down on the accelerator, and the deer lost its balance and went under the truck. The truck bucked and rocked and rolled over this deer's body, and once it was up and over, Kyle slammed the accelerator again and tried to drive away as quickly as he could. As he was driving away, Kyle looked into his rear view, and he could see the deer shaking, but it managed to stand back up on its hind leg. Kyle finished his story, and we all just sat there, reminiscing over the tales we had just spoken, drinking our beers. So if you're ever driving through the eastern part of the country on an isolated road, keep your eyes out for these things. They are part of the forest here, and they won't mess with you if you don't mess with them. So again, if you're on a long, isolated road in the back side of the country, make sure that you're driving safe.